Hey, Amanda here. Today we're chatting about why some people drain us energetically, what's actually happening beneath the surface when that occurs, and what it might mean for where you are on your spiritual path. We'll also talk about what to do about it because awareness without a next step is never useful. So go ahead and take a listen. Welcome to Oracle Mornings, your daily ritual for inner connection and soulful insight. Each morning, we draw a card together to inspire your day with intention, reflection, and a touch of magic. Whether you're just beginning your spiritual journey or simply seeking a moment of peace, you're in the right place. So take a breath, open your heart, and let's begin. Good morning. This is your host, Amanda Johnson, host of the Oracle Mornings podcast. Today, I'd like to chat with you about whether or not there's someone in your life, possibly a family member, coworker, friend, a person you genuinely care about. However, every time you spend time with them, you come away feeling completely wiped out. Maybe it feels like you need a nap, an hour alone in a quiet room, or just some serious time to decompress before you can feel like yourself again. And maybe you felt even a little guilty about that because you love this person and you've told yourself maybe you're just introverted and you've pushed through it so many times that you've started to wonder if maybe it's something wrong with you. Let me say this. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just sensitive to energy. And that sensitivity, which can feel like a burden at times, is actually one of the signs that you are spiritually awake and becoming more so. So today, we're going to talk about why some people drain us energetically, what's actually happening beneath the surface when that occurs, and what it might mean for where you are in your spiritual path. We'll also chat about what to do about it, because awareness without a next step isn't always very useful. And of course, we will also integrate a card pull for today as well. So, what actually is an energy drain and what does it feel like? Let's start with what's actually happening because I think it's worth understanding this beyond just that person is negative or I'm simply just introverted. Everything is energy. People, places, conversations. They all carry a kind of energetic charge or frequency. Some of us are more sensitive to that than others. When you're around someone whose energy is significantly different than your own, and that could be whether it's heavy, fearful, needy, your own energy field responds to it. Think of it like tuning forks. When you strike one tuning fork near another, the second one starts to vibrate at the same frequency. And that's what happens when we spend time with certain people. Their energy can be so strong or so different than our own that we start resonating with it whether we want to or not. And that energy takes energy to process. This is different from just finding someone annoying or difficult. Energy drain has a physical quality to it. You might feel heavy, headachy, foggy, or even emotionally flat after spending time with certain people, even when the interaction was perfectly pleasant on the surface. That physical sensation is definitely worth paying attention to because your body is giving you the information. And then when you learn to read that information, it's a very important part of developing your intuition. So why is it that certain people have this effect on us when others don't? There are a few different things that can be at play here. Sometimes it's simply an energy mismatch. Maybe two people are just operating at very different energetic frequencies. Not necessarily better or worse, just different. And navigating the differences takes energy. The same way speaking a language that isn't your first language takes more mental energy than speaking your native one. This doesn't mean the relationship is wrong or needs to end. It just means you need to be aware of the cost and give yourself recovery time. which might be filling back your own well, your own energy. And then there's the emotional processing that goes along with it. Some people are going through a lot: anxiety, stress, grief, unprocessed pain. And when we're around them, we often unconsciously absorb some of what they're carrying, especially if we're naturally empathetic or sensitive. So if you find yourself often feeling other people's emotions as if they were your own, like if you walk into a room and immediately pick up on the mood without anyone saying a word, or if you feel drained, not just by difficult people, but sometimes by perfectly happy ones, that's a sign of energetic sensitivity. Some people call this being an empath. Whatever you call it, it's real and it deserves attention. I don't know about you, but I'm someone who, when I watch a movie, I have to be super careful what I pick for a movie, because if there's going to be any grief or anything that's sad, I will absolutely be bawling my eyes out and probably carrying that energy with me for the next 24 hours. And it drives my family crazy because I choose not to watch those movies, because I know the energy it will take to get myself back on track. Moving on. Another is the dynamic of the energy itself. Sometimes what's draining isn't the person's energy exactly, but the pattern of the relationship. Conversations that always circle back to the same complaints. Interactions where you do most of the emotional lifting, or relationships where your needs rarely get as much space as the other person's. I have a dear friend who's a psychologist, and so she's really good at conversation, but she often feels like in most conversations, she is doing the bulk of the emotional lifting. And that can be exhausting. And there's not many people who are able to reciprocate and do the same for her. And so those dynamics can be draining regardless of how much you love that person. And noticing that draining isn't a betrayal. It's just being honest about what's true and what you really need. Then there's also the mirror effect. And this one's worth mentioning a little bit more gently. Sometimes the people who drain us the most are triggering something unresolved in us. Let me repeat that. Sometimes those people who drain us the most, they trigger something within us. A quality we haven't made peace with in ourselves. A boundary we haven't been willing to set. A truth we've been avoiding like the plague. In those cases, the drain is actually an invitation. I'm not saying every draining relationship is a spiritual lesson, but some people are just genuinely hard to be around. But it's worth asking the question, is there something about myself I'm seeing in this person that's a reflection, and something in myself that needs attention? So you might be wondering what any of this has to do with your spiritual path, more than you might think. Energetic sensitivity is often one of the first things to amplify during a spiritual awakening. And as you become more aware, more tuned, and more present, you also become more permeable. Things that used to roll off you start to land. You feel more, you absorb more. And if you don't know what's happening, it can feel overwhelming. And you might even be coming into that alignment, yet that overwhelm is still there. The good news is that this sensitivity is a great, wonderful gift. It's the same capacity that allows you to pick up on subtle guidance or to sense when something feels aligned or off, and even to connect deeply with people and the world around you. The drain you feel is just the shadow side of a gift you haven't fully learned to work with yet. And that's why we're here, to practice every day and spend some quiet time with ourselves, or spend whatever way helps you feel that alignment and more in tune with yourself. Because energetic sensitivity and intuition are deeply connected. And the more you develop that intuition, the more you'll be able to distinguish between your own energy and what you're picking up from others. And that discernment changes everything. You may remember from an earlier episode that we went deep into what it means to find your intuition again, and that it's never left you, but that it got really, really quiet when the world went loud. So we talk a lot about digging that back up so you can be back in touch back in touch with it. So give yourself permission to protect your energy without guilt, because we're learning to put up boundaries so that we can still be with people and know when it's time to step away. And that leads us into what to do about all of this. Practically, what do you actually do with it? Here are a few things that can really help. First, you can name it. Before you manage your energy, you have to notice it. Start paying attention to how you feel before and after interactions that you have. Maybe even keep a note in your phone if it helps. So over time, you'll start to see very clear patterns about which people and environments nourish you and which ones deplete you. Now, I'm not saying to whip out your phone in front of everybody to take these notes while you're in it, but maybe, if you're leaving to go home, just take 2 minutes in your car and write, I'm feeling this way after spending this time with this person and in this environment, because patterns will become more clear when you know who you're with and where you are. The second thing is to give yourself recovery time and do it without guilt. If you know that a particular interaction is going to cost you energetically, build in recovery time on the other side. Quiet nature, whatever restores you. This isn't antisocial, it's just being self-aware. The third tip, practice a simple energetic boundary. You don't need to have an elaborate ritual, but before a draining interaction, just take a deep breath and set a quiet intention. I am here, I am present, and I am returning home to my own energy afterward. That simple act of intention makes a really big difference. Some people even visualize a light around them or imagine a gentle boundary between themselves and the other person's energy. I tend to build myself a force field that essentially looks like a big bubble. And anything that I don't want to let in, I picture it just bouncing off, but it still allows me to be present with those people. And then ask yourself, what these feelings actually are. If you're naturally sensitive, you might be carrying emotions that aren't even yours, and it can get hard to distinguish between them. If you feel heavy or flat after spending time with someone, ask honestly, is this mine, or did I pick this up from them? Sometimes just simply asking that question helps you set it down or set it aside and really distinguish between your own feelings and the feelings and emotions you just picked up. And lastly, pull a card when you feel depleted. Go ahead and grab any oracle deck you have. Maybe just throw on a random episode of mine to hear a card reading. Seriously, it's one of the most effective ways to return to your own energy after an absorbing interaction. It brings you back into your own inner world and reminds you of your own voice. So with that, let's go ahead and move into our card reading. And because we're kind of talking about sensitive energy and empathy, I decided to pull from my deck called Exploring the Empath's Oracle by Raven Digitalis. And the card that I pulled today is the very first card in the deck called Establishing Emotional Boundaries. I mean, is that perfect or what? So let's move into the reading. So go ahead, take a couple of deep breaths in and out, and we'll get started with the message. Establishing emotional boundaries. The essential themes of this card are 1. Distinguishing our energies and emotions from those of others. 2. Recognizing boundaries with other people. And 3rd, contemplating nuances of emotional and energetic exchanges. Pulling this card is a direct call to action for all highly empathetic and emotionally sensitive individuals. This card necessitates the establishment of boundaries between that which is emotionally yours and that which belongs to another person, to society, or is a result of social conditioning. Although it can seem dreadfully hard, especially at first, it is our duty to recognize which emotions belong to us and which belong to an external party or parties. This does not exclude social conditioning that we've experienced over time, as we are apt to absorb and hold on to difficult emotions from the past. There is no reward in simply entering another person's emotional reality and remaining there. You do not need to empathize with everyone, nor do you need to agree with everyone. For example, if you don't like sports, don't pretend to like sports. You can, however, empathize with someone's sports-fueled excitement without invalidating their feelings. We interact with people in person, on the phone, online, and through various other mediums. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or feel exhausted from an exchange, you have the right to kindly draw a boundary. You might say, "It's been great talking. I need to take care of X, Y, and Z." Or you may change your body language to indicate that you need to politely excuse yourself. If all else fails, go to the bathroom for a breather. We empaths often naturally assume that everyone is as open as we are. It's a tough lesson to learn that people have their boundaries, many of them based in ego or identity, that we may cross without realizing. We can gain greater awareness and empowerment by mentally taking a step back in social situations to analyze the emotional energy of the moment. It takes a lot of practice for extremely empathetic people to discover the best ways to politely, yet firmly, draw and recognize social boundaries, as well as to distinguish our emotions from those of others. This card reminds us that it is not only possible, but also necessary on the empathetic journey. Practice makes perfect. Go ahead and take a moment to reflect. Is it me, or does it seem like so many things come down to boundaries in life? And I do think it's pretty funny of the universe to send us this particular card for this episode on emotional boundaries. I really love when that happens. I also love this card because it's not airy or vague or floaty. It's direct and it's practical, and it speaks exactly to the person who's been feeling all of this, but maybe hasn't had the words for it yet. The card opens by naming the essential work, distinguishing our energies in motion from those of others. And that's it. That's the whole practice. And everything we talked about today earlier, asking whose feelings these are, noticing what's yours and what you picked up, that's exactly what this card is calling us toward. And there's a line in here that I want to highlight. There is no reward in simply entering another person's emotional reality and remaining there. Again, there's no reward in entering another person's emotional reality and remaining there. For those of us who are naturally empathetic, we do this constantly and often without realizing it. We step into someone else's emotional world because we care, because we want to help, or because it feels like the loving thing to do. But then we forget to come back out. We've got to come back out to ourselves. Connect to the practical guidance that this card has given by giving permission to draw that boundary mid-conversation, to change your body language or excuse yourself or take that bathroom break if you need one. And I love that the card gives such a grounded and real-world example that you don't have to like sports just because someone else is excited about them, but you can acknowledge that excitement and feel lit up by their excitement, but you don't have to absorb it. Again, that's a distinction between witnessing someone's emotion and then taking it as your own or not. It's a very valuable thing a sensitive person can learn. And then the line, we empaths often naturally assume that everyone is as open as we are. That one really landed for me personally, and maybe it did for you too. Because it's true, isn't it? We extend our openness and our emotional availability, and sometimes we're surprised when it isn't met in the same way. And this card's asking us to develop greater awareness of the emotional energy of any given moment, and to mentally take a step back and observe, rather than immediately absorb. And you can kind of do that by being the one in the listening seat rather than always asking questions. Just leave some more space to listen so that you have that time to mentally step back. And the card closes with this. It is not only possible, but also necessary on the empathetic journey. Establishing emotional boundaries isn't something you do once and check it off your list. It is a practice. And honestly, as I was reading this card today, I had the same thought you might have had. It really does seem like everything comes down to boundaries, doesn't it? In relationships, energy, and life with your kids. Maybe that's because boundaries are really just the space where you end and someone else begins. And knowing where that line is, that's how you find your way home to yourself. And if you've been feeling the weight of other people's energy lately, let this card be a message specifically for yourself. You're allowed to tend to your own energy, and you're allowed to step back, step out, and come back to yourself. It is not selfish. It's a practice, and it's absolutely sacred. So I've got a few questions for you today that you can reflect on or journal on or just sit with. Number 1, think of one person in your life who consistently leaves you feeling drained. Without judgment towards them or yourself, just notice. What is the quality of that interaction? What are you usually giving in those moments? And what, if anything, are you receiving back? Number 2, the card today asked us to distinguish between what's emotionally ours and what belongs to someone else. Is there something you've been carrying lately, a heaviness, a worry, a low mood that might not actually be yours? Where might it have come from? And what would it feel like to gently set it down? And number 3, what's one boundary, however big or small, that you could practice this week? It doesn't have to be a hard conversation. It could be as simple as giving yourself permission to leave an interaction when you start to feel drained, or taking 10 minutes alone after a hard day before jumping into the next thing. What's the smallest real boundary you could honor this week? As always, thank you so much for coming today and being willing to look honestly at these things and people in your life and areas of your energy that you can begin to protect a little better. Energetic sensitivity is absolutely a real thing. And if today's episode helped you feel a little more understood and a little more equipped to navigate it, then I'm really, really happy about that. And if today stirred something bigger and you feel like you might be in the middle of a spiritual awakening, I have a free guide for exactly that. It's called 5 Signs You're Beginning a Spiritual Awakening, and you can go ahead and grab it at oraclemornings.com/awakening. It's completely free, and it's a really beautiful companion to everything we've been exploring. I also have a daily oracle journal that is a beautiful tool for returning to your own energy, and you can use it along with oracle cards or simply as a journal, but it's broken out into pieces that really help you reflect on what's yours and what someone else's. And I will put a link to that in the show notes. I hope today's episode was helpful. If you thought of someone who might love today's episode, go ahead and share this with them, because the more we build our community, the more we can all come back to who we are and align with the best versions of ourselves. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Oracle Mornings. Please take a moment and follow the show so you never miss an episode. Simply open the app you listen to podcasts on, such as Apple Podcasts, and hit the follow button. Your support means the world, and I'm so grateful that you choose to spend part of your day with me. And remember, you are a miracle.